Get oriented back here. Let's see. Okay. So the next challenge I wanted to talk about is the challenge of idealized future projections. So with the Eastern Enlightenment approaches, it's easy to idealize enlightenment, Buddha mind, self-realization, egolessness, etc. Well, there's lots of different words for it. And these words are sometimes people, the way they interpret them, as a perfect state where there's perpetual serenity and only positive blissful feelings 24/7. Some teachers I've found over the years feed these projections, others discourage it. A couple of things happen when students are caught in these idealized projections. In my mind, they position themselves to be in a constant state of becoming, and two, they grasp for something that doesn't exist and are dooming themselves into perpetual becoming. A similar dynamic occurs with psychological and personal growth approaches, except what is idealized is a bit different. There might be high mental health, high self-esteem, peak performance, are all typical idealized positive projections that are held up for learners as goals of their respective approaches. Again, like this is easy to set up the dynamic of perpetual becoming, which can be an ongoing denial of the here and now and putting off your well-being into the future. So as I saw this dynamic with both the Enlightenment approaches and the psychological/personal growth approaches, I explored whether there was a way to approach things which would eliminate or at least minimize this tendency. So one of the things I did was to detach the inner presence inquiry work from idealized goals. I believe this supports people in a couple of different ways. What I've noticed is they're more free to explore the journey by taking their eyes off the destination. And it naturally discloses parts of themselves that use becoming as a way of protecting themselves. So I found it's not really necessary to dangle glorified states, dimensions, and results in order to support and engage people in an effective manner. So with the inner presence inquiry work, we create the conditions which naturally discloses the tendency to project a future idealized self and experientially points to the deeper unconscious self that gives rise to such idealizations. So with the inner presence work, there's the assumption that if we're engaged in that sort of becoming with a lot of intensity, that there's probably something deeper that's giving rise to that. Okay, the next challenge is the challenge of authority. On the Eastern Enlightenment side of the fence, it's very easy for students to put the teacher on the pedestal and not see that they too have clay feet. The teacher's associated with glorified projections that we mentioned earlier. So when doing this, students run the risk of undermining their own authority by yielding to and blindly following. So for me, learning in such a context often means we are simply collecting secondhand knowledge and wisdom which has limited value, in my opinion. Some Enlightenment teachers enjoy the adulation and feed off of it. The record of abuses is many and well documented if you look around. Other teachers work with it or try to minimize it, since they see it as an obstruction to learning. A different authority dynamic happens on a psychological or personal growth side of the fence. Some professionals will counsel or coach from a position that they know it's best for the client. The side effect of such regard is that they undermine the client's inner authority and innate wisdom. Some use diagnostic labels and science or overprescribe psychoactive meds to bolster their authority. Other professionals work with clients in a way where they guide the clients to arrive at their own conclusions and honor their innate wisdom. So these challenges with authority are prevalent in both approaches and can be encouraged or discouraged. What I've done with the inner presence work is the structure of the inner presence inquiry session naturally defers to the client's innate wisdom and intelligence. It is a core value that the client knows what is best for him or her at any given point in the inquiry. This is not to say that the inner presence coach lacks expertise or holds back expertise. It's just that the expertise is more along the line of supporting clients using various prompts and experiential techniques to connect clients with their own wisdom and intelligence so they can decide for themselves what is true for them. Any glorification of an inner presence coach is neither augmented nor diminished, but is welcomed into the inquiry as a part of the client that wants to glorify the coach. And then we just connect with that in meaningful ways. So let's move on to the next challenge, which is the challenge of negative emotions and thoughts. Some Enlightenment approaches will view negative emotions and negative thoughts, such as anger, as obstructions on the path. They encourage students to control them. Often in preliminary practices, you might hear references to purifying the three poisons that they refer to as difficult emotions. I guess that's in the Buddhist traditions. I've seen that. Often Western students can judge having negative thoughts or feeling anger as bad or wrong, or a sign that they are not enlightened or on the proper path of enlightenment. Other Enlightenment approaches acknowledge the full range of emotions and thoughts, but instruct students to allow them without trying to do anything about them. They metaphorically talk about the glass of muddy water that will become clear when it's not stirred. You'll often hear the phrase, to leave it as it is. And this lessens the chance of people becoming entangled with their negative emotions and thoughts. Some psychological / personal growth approaches also view negative thoughts and emotions as something to change, fix, and get relief from through numerous methods. Usually there's lots of effort associated with changing emotions and thoughts. Some focus on expressing them and orient towards catharsis. Some pay a lot of attention to uncovering negative thoughts and feelings and replacing them with positive thoughts and feelings. A side effect of this positive orientation is that they can unwittingly keep people identified with a sense of self or ego that gives rise to such negative thoughts and feelings. Just having the attitude of fixing or changing emotions is often the very thing that shuts negative feelings down and prevents the client from feeling them. So, considering all these challenges with both approaches, the inner presence work invites negative and positive emotions and thoughts into the inquiry process, gives them a voice to be expressed in a way that does not foster deep identification with them. There's an attitude of allowance and meeting them with a high degree of presence. The inner presence coach learns a refined way of being with thoughts and feelings, which inspires deeper, more profound feelings and thoughts to naturally emerge, which are also held in a high degree of presence. So just that point alone has been profound in the contributions that I've noticed I've made to others over the years, kind of adhering to that value or that orientation. Okay, the next challenge I want to cover here is the challenge of the present. With some Eastern Enlightenment approaches, reference to being in the present or staying in the present are encouraged. Some teachers will say that it's not useful to delve into the past or be preoccupied with the future because we miss out on what is happening now. Some learners take this information and begin to make being in the present the goal, which can have its own set of drawbacks. Other Enlightenment teachers will talk about the timeless present that emerges when the subject-object orientation collapses and there are no longer reference for time to exist. In other words, experiencing life outside the sense of self inherently accompanies a sense of timelessness. On the psychological personal growth side, there is generally an assumption that delving into past experiences for the purpose of healing wounds or gaining understanding is supportive. That this will shed light on why one experiences life the way they do in the present. The pitfalls to this approach are many. One is that you can get stuck in the past or stuck making endless interpretations. And this could encourage deeper identifications and could fortify a sense of self. Not all psychological approaches fall into this category. I'm just speaking in generalities here. On the coaching side, instead of delving into the past, a lot of coaching modalities suggest to focus on creating a better future. Its general message is, don't focus on the past. Let's just generate some action steps to get where you want to go, or some variation of this future orientation. Although there are many advantages with such future orientation, some of the pitfalls to this can be a focus of attainment of something in the future, can be at the expense of the here and now. Also, the person can become identified with some idealistic future self, which fortifies that sense of self we've been talking about all along. So with this inner presence inquiry work, we neither focus on the past or the future, but we focus on supporting people to be present to what is emerging within the session. So if the client's past memory enters this session, we connect with that and allow a high degree of presence to envelop this memory. If a future projection enters the inquiry, we connect with that in the same way. If the client has a part emerge that wants to mentally dredge up a past memory to find an answer, we welcome and hold presence for this part that wants to dredge. If a client has a part emerge that is analyzing the future to make sure he or she will be safe in some context, we welcome and hold presence for this part that wants to analyze. With this inner presence approach, being in the present means being with whatever is emerging in the client's experience. So the past and future are relevant only as they are spontaneously activated and expressed in the present within a session. This eliminates a lot of pitfalls mentioned earlier with other approaches and supports people to have meaningful connections with whatever is arising in their present time experience. We are not using the present as some ideal to be attained, but a window in which to glimpse whatever is bubbling up during the inquiry and inviting this into the session with a high degree of presence. So by learning to stay in a high degree of presence during an inquiry session, the facilitator and the client are less likely to fall into identification with what is emerging and be able to engage what is emerging in meaningful ways. Okay. So this concludes the integration piece of the workshop. I hope I gave you kind of a sampling of some of the challenges between the two approaches and some of the solutions I came up with and over the years in forming the inner presence work. It's been an interesting journey. This concludes part 2 of the Inner Presence Coaching online workshop. If you'd like more information about the 9-month Inner Presence Coaching Program, please visit our website at www.innerpresencecoaching.com. Or you can email me with questions at jerry@innerpresencecoaching.com. Thank you for listening.